So here we are going to learn EJB 3.0 design goals and simplified bean class and environment, resource access and dependency injection. So design goals of 3.0 is to fix the problems of EJB 2.x. Now I want to actually get you a sense of why EJB could be still useful. The features people need to have when they are writing enterprise applications include transaction, security, threat management, and these are the features that even EJB 2.x supports. Okay. However, usage of EJB 2.x was, from a development standpoint, was very awkward. It's very inconvenient to use EJB 2.x. And runtime of EJB container is also very heavyweight. So that's the reason EJB, the idea was good, but implementation-wise, it was not good enough to be used in production environment. So that is the reason EJB 3.0 was born. Again, trying to become as close as to, let's say, Spring Framework. Okay. All right, so the idea of 3.0, the idea of 3.0 in order to fix EJB 2.x is something like this. More work should be done by the container, less by developer. So it makes it easier for developers to write EJB applications. And instead of actually you write a lot of things, you just specify what needs to be done through annotations, and then containers should actually provide all the required services to the beans. It also actually should provide simplified programming model. So it's a lot more simplified to build EJB. All you have to do is in fact using annotation. Okay. In EJB 2.x, you have to actually implement some interfaces, you have to extend some classes, and you have to write the deployment descriptor and all kinds of chores that you have to do in order to write EJB. So that's the reason people just didn't like it. Okay. So EJB 3.0, it makes the developer's life a lot easier, and the whole idea is based on convention over configuration or configuration by exception. So these are design principles for pretty much all modern frameworks. Okay. So EJB 3.0 adopted it as well. So simplified bean class, basically, there are three different bean types: stateless, stateful, and message driven. So we have already seen message driven bean things, right? Okay. So in order to make your bean to be EJB, all you have to do is using this @stateless or @stateful annotation. That's it. Okay. So things are a lot more simplified. So this is EJB 2.1 session bean. So this is old and this is strongly discouraged. Of course, EJB 2.x is considered as a dog. Okay, so it's very inconvenient to write EJB 2.x code. So EJB 3.0, all you have to do is again using the annotation @stateless. Okay, and that bean can implement an interface. And these are all POJO style. There is really no the EJB container specific requirement that needs to be followed. They only accept that you just use the annotation. So business interfaces of EJB 3.0. So it's a plain Java interface. Okay, so old EJB object, EJB home interface requirements are gone. Bean class can implement its own business interface. And either it could be local or remote. Local by default and remote by annotation. I think there was actually one question that was asked today that can you actually have an EJB bean running on a remote server? The answer is yes. You can have an EJB bean that is annotated with the remote, that is considered as a remote bean, and then your web tier running on different machine can actually talk to EJB bean running on a different machine. Okay. So this local is the default, and if you want to have if you want to have your bean to be remote, then you use the remote bean. Okay, and also you could actually have a message-driven bean, which we have already looked into in our the JMS exercise. Okay, so this is the way that you can specify that this bean that implements this interface is a remote bean rather than a default local bean. And so if you want to make this bean to be stateless and remote, you specify these two annotations. Okay, so I'm going to finish up the presentation, and let me actually explain the lab exercises, and then I'm going to actually finish up the presentation, and then I'll let you guys have some time to run the exercise. So there's EJB. So here you are going to import EJB. We are going to build with EJB demo and load tree annotation. Okay, so these two projects are available, and you're gonna just import it, and you're gonna just install it, meaning building it, and then you're going to select EJB demo and web, and run on server, and select Glassfish, and basically what you're going to see is this. Okay. So this is pretty much the same EJB applications we have seen during the past couple of hands-on lab exercises. So if you take a look at the code, this is a servlet code. So inside a servlet, it will actually, it will indicate that it wants to have EJB object, and only thing it has to do is using @EJB. Okay. So that is the, basically indicating to the container that I want to have an EJB object whose type is this, my session local. And once you have done that, then you can just use it in your code. So here we are basically using that bean. It invokes the say hello method. Okay. And then this is the EJB bean. So on the EJB, you're going to see this is made of class, implementation class, and interface. So this is implementation class, my session, and it implements the my session local. So only thing it does have, the only method it has the say hello that gets invoked from the servlet. Okay, so usage of EJB is very simple. Okay, now EJB, again, the reason that EJB is useful is because all the transaction things are actually handled by EJB container. So as a default, it's actually using, remember transaction required attribute that is automatically set here. Okay, so transaction and also thread, the servlet is not thread safe, right? But EJB is thread safe. So thread management is also handled by the container. So those are, and also the securities, those are all provided by the container, and that's the reason that you still want to take advantage of EJB. All right, so that is exercise 1. Let's actually move forward. Environment, resource, and access and dependency injection. So basically, by dependency injection or simple lookup, you can still use JNDI if you want to. Okay, and you can specify dependencies by using annotations, or you can override in XML if you want to. So there are a few things that you can ask the container to inject it. So we have already seen EJB annotation for EJB injection. For other resources like connection factories and topics and queues, so these are JMS resources, EJB context or user transactions. So we have seen some of these examples as well. So you use @resource the annotation to inject these resources. In the later version of Java EE, in fact Java EE 6, there is in fact the more general version of dependency injection provided by what is called the CDI. Okay, so we're going to actually spend quite a bit of time learning the concept of CDI, context, the context and context dependency injection. Okay, all right. So dependence injection, so bean instance is applied with references to resources in environment, occurs when bean instance is created. No assumptions as to order of injection. Optional post-construct method is called when injection is complete. Okay, so this is how things work. But yeah, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, don't worry about this. It's not that important. Okay, dynamic environment lookup. Some applications still need to, so in my previous slide, I didn't mean that dependency injection is not important. Dependency injection is very important. How it is done underneath is not important. That's what I meant to say. Dynamic environment lookup. Some applications still need to look up resources dynamically in JNDI. So if you happen to have some resources configured in your app server, you still need to the lookup. In that case, EJB 3.0 provides simpler syntax. Okay, so you're basically just calling lookup method of session context object, providing the name of that resource. So it's a lot more simplified API than it used to be. Okay. So if you take a look at the code, so in this case, this particular code, it needs to get a resource object reference of payroll manager. Okay, so in order to do that, you have to actually get the session context object. This session context object gets injected through the usage of add resource, and then you can use the lookup method. Okay, assuming this payroll manager has been configured in app server. Okay, so exercise 2 is exercise 2 and exercise 3 is session context. Okay, and I think that's the end of the presentation. So let me just show you lab documentation. So this is pretty much the same application in exercise 1, and here we are going to actually go through the step-by-step control flow. So let's actually run this application first. So this is EJB 3.0, and lottery annotation. Again, you are going to perform the build Maven install, and you are going to run Maven web. Okay, this is done. So you are going to run as and run on server, and again select the Glassfish 4.0. So it's a simple annotation application. So you can pick and choose the whatever lottery you want to choose. So I can choose Super Lotto and then pick the number. Okay, and then I go here, and then I can choose something else. Pick spin and pick the number. So very simple application. Okay, so if you take a look at the so this is what happens. So in this case, this is a control flow. So when you run the application, this page is actually deployed from this is actually the index.html page, and when you click it, it will go to play lottery servlet. Okay, so now if you go to so that's when you click it, it goes that servlet. So this is the servlet, and inside the servlet is actually using dice as a EJB. Okay. So we are going to use dice, and we're also actually using some lottery stateful, stateful EJB object. Okay, and then we actually use the dice. So stateful object, you cannot actually inject it. Okay, so stateful object has to be configured in app server. Okay, so dice play, and then it's going to so this is the EJB bean. Now, session context is basically what we are going to do. In this case, you are going to actually add these two methods, dummy session bean and dummy session local Java. And the code is so in this case, we are going to say bean, so we are going to this data bean. Okay, this is the dummy bean, and it's implementing dummy session bean local. Okay. And only thing it does is basically it basically have a date, and then lucky message is something like this. Okay, so when you run the code, quick pick, and it will display lucky message is passion it will get displayed. Okay. So in this case, it's just try to show how the session context is in fact actually being used. So I thought, okay, I actually tried to show, hold on a second, it looks like something is missing. Dummy session, and then we have local, EJB, today. So I think there is actually another code that I didn't document it. Okay, so it's actually meant to show the okay, so maybe this is the place. Let me see whether that actually is using dummy somewhere. All right, so I have to actually look it up. But you know, the whole idea, I mean, you have actually seen the session context object is being used to look things up. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. So let me just stop